Payback and Investment. Okay. Payback and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. Doctor, I welcome you. The representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives is the chairman, Nigeria-Denmark Parliamentary Friendship Group, the vice chairman, Labor, Employment and Productivity. He's a member of the House of Representatives from Anambra East and West Federal Constituency, representing the Speaker, Right Honorable Peter Udungalaya Anekwe. I welcome you. You're welcome. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome here the representative of the Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, Dr. Mrs. Olayinka Aduni Komolafe, Secretary to the agency. I welcome you. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will continue. Mr. Ahmed Gubar, President of CIPM, is he here now? I welcome you. Thank you very much. And the Chairman of the Federal Civil Service Commission. If there was a Civil Service Olympics, no doubt about it, he'll be leader of the team to the Olympics. One of the finest civil servants in this country, Professor Olaokpa, Chairman of Federal Civil Service Commission, is here with us. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's with pleasure that I welcome all of you to the third edition of the Nigeria Employers Summit 2024. For over 60 years, NECA has been promoting harmony, fostering prosperity in the country, and serving as authentic voice of the private sector. This year, the summit will focus on the emerging economic renaissance as a result of the policies of government and the corresponding agility from the private sector. And very clearly, this administration, following years of economic stagnation, are putting in place structural reforms designed to improve the macroeconomic environment, strengthening the public expenditure management, implementing institutional and governance reforms, and enabling the private sector. So this summit, in the next 2 days, will look at these reforms, their benefits and challenges as we embark on the journey of economic recovery and sustained growth. So I welcome all of you, but to formally welcome all of us here, I want to welcome here the president of NECA, Mr. Taiwo Adeni, to please step forward to deliver his welcome address.
Good morning, all. Simply what I should have done this morning is to say, as usual, I welcome you all to the third edition of the Employers Summit. But because this is a very different one from the first, the second, I will not just do that, but I will properly welcome us to this 2 days thought-provoking setting agenda program that we have put together as the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. I will not try to go through the protocol. The MC, you can see he also struggled with it. I don't want to join him in that, so I will not I don't want to do that again, but to please request that we maintain that protocol for now. As other guests come in, I'm sure it will do justice to them. But I welcome all of us this morning to the third edition of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association Annual Employer Summit. In just 3 years, the summit has become the premier advocacy platform for business-focused deliberations and policy discussions in Nigeria. From the first edition in the year 2022, which was themed Enthroning the Private Sector as Engine of National Development, to the second edition last year, themed Promoting Trade and Non-Oil Exports, Changing the Narratives for National Development. The annual summit has grown in leaps and bounds with both local and international recognition. In fact, I must tell you, the International Labour Organization is quite interested in a program like this that promotes taking people off the streets. Our theme this year, Economic Renaissance, Harnessing Government Reforms and Private Sector Agility, aims to deepen collaboration and create pathways towards maximizing ongoing government reforms by leveraging the capacity and potential of private sector employers. We believe this will expedite the achievement of the 8-point renewed hope agenda of Mr. President towards promoting predictable, sustained, and inclusive national development for our nation. Since the beginning of this administration, government has embarked on ambitious agenda to transform our economy through various reforms. These reforms span various sectors, including agriculture, manufacturing, energy, and digital technology. As you are all aware, it also includes significant measures such as the removal of fuel subsidy, the forest unification policy, and ongoing omnibus monetary and fiscal reforms led by the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee under our very good friend, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, and many others that we cannot mention. Are these reforms necessary? Absolutely yes. Can the reforms achieve maximum success without the active support of employers and indeed the organized private sector? We don't think so. While we commend these efforts and recognize their critical role in attracting investment, enhancing productivity, and driving sustainable economic growth, it is essential to note that the true measure of these reforms lie in their effective implementation and the tangible benefits they deliver to businesses and citizens alike. The Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, and indeed the organized private sector of Nigeria, with its inherent dynamism and innovation, stands as a cornerstone of economic development. Our agility allows us to swiftly respond to market changes, adopt new technologies, and create value. It is this spirit of innovation and resilience that government must harness to make the reforms more effective by promoting a symbiotic relationship between the public sector's regulatory framework and the private sector's dynamism, and value creation, our country can achieve sustainable and inclusive growth. The summit, therefore, serves as a platform for dialogue, critical thinking, collaboration, and a call to action for every stakeholder. It is also an opportunity to share insights, best practices, and innovative solutions that can drive our economic renaissance. Be rest assured that this is not another talk shop, but a practical and result-driven platform that will continue to promote enterprise, sustainability, and national development. Outcomes of this summit will be shared with government and other stakeholders to complement the current roadmap for our economic renaissance. Once again, I want to appreciate His Excellency, our President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for his commitment to private sector and indeed national development. I also want to appreciate all cabinet ministers and government functionaries, captains of industry, and other stakeholders too numerous to mention. Last but not the least, I appreciate the Honorable Minister of State of Labor and Employment, who will be joining us soon. Our commitment and passion for industrial peace and harmony is well noted. Thank you for listening, and I wish us all fruitful deliberations.
Thank you very much. That's the president of NECA, Mr. Taiwo Denila. Can we put our hands together for him one more time? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I'd like to welcome here the Deputy Team Lead, Trade Enablement Coordinator, Policies, Regulations, and Law, representing Mr. Shegun Awolowo, Executive Secretary, National Action Committee on African Continental Free Trade Area. Dr. Fatima Bello, I welcome you. I welcome you. Thank you very much. And so, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, next to speak to us and set the tone for our conversation today is a seasoned HR practitioner. He's a board member of the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center. He's also the Director General and Chief Executive of NECA. Please join us. I welcome here Mr. Dewale Smart Oyenide.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us once again, as the President has said earlier. Mine is not too, it's very easy basically. And for most of us that join us first year, second year, and those of us that are joining us for the first time, if I should ask what is NECA, probably like an elephant. And if you ask someone that is blindfolded to describe an elephant for you, if he holds it by the hair, he probably will describe it differently. If he holds it by the tail, he will describe it differently. If he holds it by the trunk, he probably will say something different. So mine in 2 minutes is to just take us through the evolution of what exactly NECA is. You know, for some of us, some have called it NACA. You know, some have sometimes say it's NEPA. But really, what exactly do we do? Some know us basically as the focal point, the global focal point for industrial relations, industrial and labor relations over time. And many erroneously have also continued to relate with us within that context. But for over 60 years, NECA will be 67 years by next month. And within that space, the association have evolved significantly to be an omnibused employers federation and then a business membership organization. And what you have here is basically our footprint and what exactly we do. For some of you that don't know, NECA is Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, the foremost business membership organization in Nigeria and arguably in Africa. We are involved in public-private sector advocacy. Every issue that affects businesses, be it tax, be it regulation, be it whatever context you think at it. If you look at your business and you look at every area that affects your business, NECA plays in that field. And our role is simple: to create or facilitate, enhance, or advocate for an environment that is sustainable, an environment that is hospitable for businesses to thrive in this environment. And that is basically one of the things that our partner agency, PEBEC, is also deeply involved with. We are also involved strongly in capacity building. If you want the best of capacity building on labor, on industrial relations, on any subject matter whatsoever, I think NECA is your best bet. Employability and job creation projects. We are not only employers' representatives, we are also deeply involved through our employability schemes on issues concerning employability. Trade facilitation and investment promotion is also one of the things that we drive in the association. Environment, climate change, and just transition. Everything green. The ILO said there are over 20 million jobs in the green economy that is just untapped. And while we are struggling with so many other issues, struggling with unemployment, high unemployment rate, we are also exploring and navigating those uncharted terrains to create jobs for our young persons through the green economy, labor and industrial relations. SME and MSME development is also one of our critical forte. Sustainability and ESG, technical skill development through our partnership with ITF, labor migration through our partnership with the Ministry of Labor and International Organization of Migration. Regulatory and tax advisory is also one of those key things we do, and definitely our DNA also consists of research, deep research, because our advocacy is based on research. Then we have global partners and collaborators, which has helped us significantly in driving this conversation. We have the International Labour Organization as one of our key partners. We have the International Organization of Migration. We have International Organization of Employers. We have UNICEF. We have Decent Jobs for Youth. We have Prince Trust. It's owned by Prince Charles, who is now King Charles. UNIDO, Global Apprenticeship Network, Center for International Private Enterprise, and IOSH. These are some of our global partners. And what do we do with them? We collaborate with them to tap into the expertise of these global organizations so that we can drive investment into the country, so that we can drive funds into this country, so that we can also partner to reduce the high unemployment rate in this country. And on the local front, these are also some of our partners and collaborators, and this will not surprise you. We have the Securities and Exchange Commission as one of our key partners, and we are privileged to have the DG, the new DG of SEC with us. We have PENCOM, we have Industrial Training Fund, we have SMEDAN as also one of our partners, we have Federal Mortgage Bank, we have the Institute, NIPS, as also one of our partners, we have PEBEC as one of our very, very important partners, we have NSITF, we also have with us the CIPM, who is also one of our partners, and many agencies that we cannot mention because of time. So to drive national growth, to drive development in this environment, I tell you without doubt that NECA is your best bet. Are you interested in partnering with us? Are you interested in joining this administration in driving the 8-point agenda? From what I've read out, you see investment promotion, you see job creation, you see trade facilitation. Those are the core reasons that we do in NECA, and we'll continue to advocate for the private sector development as a key element in whatever context of development that we are talking about, both in Nigeria and in West Africa sub-region. So NECA, we are building strategic partnerships and collaborations to promote and attract investment, promote sustainable and responsible enterprises, promote skills development, promote job creation, and national development, among others. Peradventure, you need more information concerning the association, please feel free to walk down to the registration point. My colleagues are there to give more information. And peradventure, you don't have a copy of this in your program, also reach out to the colleagues outside. Once again, thank you, and I also join the president to wish you a very fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Director General and CEO of NECA. And the thing is very clear. Collaboration, synergy, partnership. This is what has sustained NECA over the years. And as he was speaking, our keynote speaker, the former Honorable Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment, one of Nigeria's finest brains in finance or even in medicine, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama, stepped in. I welcome you. Thank you very much. It is said that a dream doesn't become reality through magic. And this is what the DG had just told us. It takes sweat, it takes determination, it takes hard work. Because all growth depends upon activity. We shall be taking a few goodwill messages, and we appeal that we restrict it to maximum of 2 minutes. Let me kick off here, and the DG mentioned CIPM as one of the strategic partners of NECA, and we're very happy the President and Chairman of Council is here with us. I'd like to welcome the highly cerebral Mr. Ahmed Guber to please step forward.
Thank you very much. Good morning all, and let me join the President and DG of NECA again to say welcome to the third Employer Summit of NECA. As CIPM, we are a corporate member of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, and we've come a long way with NECA, partnering on a daily basis to ensure, of course, that we add value to members of the association, to employer groups and employer association. We are a professional institute, a human resource institute. We are people managers, and all we do, of course, is to ensure that our organizations, whether in the public sector or the private sector, are peopled by those who have the required professional competencies, of course, to add value to the organizations that they work for. Hopefully, as this summit progresses, we will be speaking more about the role of the CIPM, its collaborative and partnership relationship with NECA. What I'm asked to do this morning is simply to join NECA to welcome all of you and to congratulate NECA, the President, and the Director General of NECA and the ESCO of NECA for yet again pulling off the third of this Employers Summit. It is our hope that by the time we leave here after tomorrow, we will all, of course, have gained some insights into what NECA is doing with industry leaders, with CEOs, and with the government, of course, to move the Nigerian economy forward. Thank you all very much for your presence, and thank you for being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The President and Chairman of Council of CIEPM. Thank you very much, sir. I welcome you. From him, we'll go to a man who also plays the role of personnel management. He's right now the Director General of the Nigerian Governance Forum. Dr. Shitu, you cannot take your seat now. Please come straight to the podium to deliver your goodwill message. Let's appreciate him. Thank you very much. He's the Director General of the Nigerian Governance Forum, a very astute intellectual, civil servant, public servant, everything rolled into one with one leg in the private sector.
Good morning. I bring you felicitations from the Nigerian Governors Forum. And it's a pleasure to address this esteemed gathering of this Nigerian Employer Summit. The theme for this year's summit, Economic Renaissance, Harnessing Government Reforms and Private Sector Agility, is both timely and essential as we navigate the complexities of our national economy. In recent years, Nigeria has embarked on a journey of transformative reforms aimed at revitalizing our economic landscape. The government's effort in streamlining regulatory frameworks, enhancing ease of doing business, and fostering a more inclusive economic environment are commendable. These reforms are not just policy shifts. They are the bedrock upon which we are building a resilient and sustainable economy. However, the success of these reforms hinges significantly on the collaboration between the public and the private sector. It is here that the agility and innovation of the private sector plays a crucial role. The entrepreneurial spirit, resourcefulness, and adaptability that defines our private enterprises are key drivers of economic growth. They bring dynamism and competitiveness, essential ingredients for an economic renaissance. Our journey towards economic rejuvenation is a collective endeavor. It requires us to harness the strength of both sectors, creating synergies that propels us forward. The government role is to provide an enabling environment, while the private sector must seize these opportunities with agility and innovation. Together, we can build the economy that not only recovers, but thrives. One of the most significant areas where this synergy is evident is in job creation. The private sector is the engine of the employment driving job creation through new ventures, expanding businesses, and investment in human capital. Government reforms aimed at improving infrastructure, education, and technology provide the necessary support to amplify these efforts. By working together, we can ensure that our workplace and workforce is skilled, empowered, and ready to contribute to a dynamic economy. However, we must not overlook the importance of sustainable development. As we pursue economic growth, we must also consider the long-term impact of our actions. Environmental sustainability, social inclusivity, and good governance are pillars that should guide our development agenda. By integrating these principles, we can achieve a holistic economic renaissance that benefits all Nigerians. In closing, let us remember that the path to economic revival is not a sprint, but a marathon. It requires patience, persistence, and a shared value and vision. We pledge our continued support and collaboration with the private sector to realize this vision. Together we can transform challenges into opportunities, fostering an economic environment where business thrive, create jobs, and share prosperity. Thank you, and I wish you all a fruitful summit.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdulateef O.T. Shitu, the Director General of the Nigerian Governors Forum. We thank you for coming here and being part of this amazing event. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker for this goodwill message is an acknowledged jurist, an academic, a policy entrepreneur. He is a special advisor to the President of PEBEC and investment law. I'd like to welcome here Dr. Jumoke Oduwole.
Good morning. In the interest of time, I'll just stand on the very well adumbrated protocols. So, fellow stakeholders in Nigeria's economic development, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure and a deep sense of responsibility that I join you today at the third edition of NECA's Employer Summit. I'm honored to be part of this significant gathering, which embodies our collective commitment to Nigeria's economic renaissance through harnessing government reforms and private sector agility. The theme of this summit, Economic Renaissance, Harnessing Government's Reforms and Private Sector Agility, is both timely and essential. It encapsulates the critical need for a symbiotic relationship between government initiatives and the dynamism of our private sector. This partnership is pivotal as we strive to create a robust and resilient economy that can withstand global challenges and thrive in the face of adversity. One of the greatest challenges we face is ensuring the economic policies are not only well crafted, but are also well received and effectively implemented. Businesses often encounter hurdles that hinder seamless policy adoption, which can stifle growth and innovation. At PEBEC, we are committed to eliminating such barriers by fostering a friendly business environment. We believe that through open dialogue and collaboration with NECA and other stakeholders, we can streamline policy implementation, reduce resistance, and pave the way for more effective reforms. So creating jobs is at the heart of our development agenda. The private sector is the primary engine for job creation, and its agility and responsiveness are crucial. And we must continue to support and incentivize businesses to expand and innovate, thereby creating more opportunities for employment. On our part, the government and the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, which was established in July of 2016 under the leadership of our keynote speaker today, Dr. Oke Enelama, the former Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, oversees Nigeria's business environment and intervention. I believe he deserves a round of applause. I thought I'd. Yes. He was vice chair of the PEBEC for 4 years, yes. And the government remains committed to removing bureaucratic and legislative constraints to doing business and to improve the perception about ease of doing business in Nigeria. So the PEBEC Secretariat is responsible for implementation of the PEBEC's mandate and works closely with all arms and levels of government. So I'd like to recognize Prof. here from National Assembly. Thank you very much for being with us. We work with the National Assembly, Judiciary. We work with all state governments and the FCT. We work with private sector. NECA is one of our trusted partners, as we've mentioned, and we collaborate across all stakeholders and friends of Nigeria. So earlier this year, on the 8th of January, the PEVEC Secretariat released our 2024 Outlook document, which contains basically what we are doing this year, and it stands on 5 pillars. Our regulatory reforms, interventions. We've just completed a 90-day regulatory reform accelerator. Some of you may have seen that on the news. There was a 30-day extension, and in fact, we have a town hall meeting on Friday the 28th, this Friday, to discuss over 35 ministries, departments, and agencies worked on several reforms just to make the business climate more conducive. And the regulatory intervention codifies our Executive Order 1, which is in the Business Facilitation Act of 2022. Our legislative and judicial reforms, we continue to work on the small claims courts. Over 30 states now have small claims courts, which started through the PEVEC in 2018. And we're now in the process of automating those small claims courts. And our legislative reforms, we have our Omnibus Bill 2.0 ongoing, which delivered the first iteration of that, the Omnibus Bill, the inaugural Omnibus Bill, the first of its kind in this country, delivered the Business Facilitation Act of 2022. I already mentioned we work with all states, all subnationals. NGF is a big partner of the PEVEC, so I'd like to recognize Dr. Shitu. And the type of work that PEVEC does necessitates being in a forum like this to make sure that indeed employers reap the benefits of the work and the interventions that we continue to do. So strategic communications forms the 4th pillar of the work that we do. The 5th one, which I'll touch on very briefly, is our new PEVEC Business Champions program. We've started with the Platinum PEVEC Business Champions, which are companies in Nigeria, about 23 of them, that gross over $1 billion per annum. And some of the members, I believe Nestle is represented here today. Some of the members are in the room today. Very large businesses that have a symbiotic effect. They have a lot of employment. They pay a lot of taxes to government. They remit export proceeds. And we believe as government, it's our duty to support these business champions as their multiplier effect cascades through the entire economy. Of course, we continue to do our bread and butter work as it is of supporting micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, which is the main mandate of the PEVEC. In conclusion, this summit is a testament to our shared vision and commitment to driving Nigeria's economic renaissance. I'm confident that the deliberations and outcomes of this summit will contribute significantly to reinforcing the role of the private sector as the engine of national development. On that note, I'd like to recognize and appreciate the President of NECA and the Council, the Executive Director, and all the members. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jumoke Oduwale. Can we appreciate her one more time? Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to also welcome here the Director General and Chief Executive of the Pan-African Association of Small and Medium Industries, with offices in Nigeria and Kigali, Rwanda. Dr. Henry E. Emejo is here with us. Where are you, Doctor? Thank you very much. A whole lot of medical doctors are stepping forward into other areas, employment creation, finance, and many more. Our next go-to speaker is a political scientist. He's also a public administrator. He is one of those that today the Nigerian civil service has been praised all over the world, has been nimble, agile, and digitally compliant. But these are some of the men that did the work and are still doing the work. He's the chairman of the Federal Civil Service Commission I'd like to welcome Professor Toji Olauba.
Permit me to also adopt the well-established protocols and to say that it's a great delight to join other employers of labor and stakeholders at this auspicious third Employers Summit of NECA to prospect on Nigeria's economic renaissance. Rising from the adverse effect of COVID-19 pandemic and the deep crisis state of the economy as at 2023, I dare say that national economic policies, especially the Renew Hope agenda, might be translating slowly to democratic dividends, but surely it will in time, with more concerted effort and deepened policy creativity. The growing confidence in the resilience of the economy and the fiscal space from the subsidy remover needs to prioritize the real productive sectors so the real sector can drive sustainable growth and macroeconomic stability. Concerted efforts, concerted actions are required clearly to expand alternative sources of financing to fix infrastructure gap, while at once strengthening the regulatory oversights of such bodies like the NERC to hold discos accountable. With regards to the deepening of reforms to strengthen institutions and regulation, much more needs to be done to lessen bureaucratic burden to investment and enterprise through the streamlining of business approval processes, elimination of duplicative licenses, acceleration of court digitization, improved insolvency reforms to improve contract enforcement, expanded angel investments and other venture capital funding to transform Nigeria technology startups into key global players. In the education sector, which I'm very passionate about, we need to do more with curriculum revamp focused on virtual skills to improve teaching quality and pedagogy in general. CWES, another industry apprenticeship on the job mentorship partnership that expose students early to employability and enterprise skills, needs to be revamped, reprofiled, and consolidated. More investment, active promotion and encouragement is still required in the SME space. This is the space that harbors the shadow economy or the informal sector. Since the bulk of the Nigerian population will continue to depend on the informal farms for their sustenance for a long time to come, our commitment to poverty reduction therefore compels us to do more to help informal farms to become more productive, quite apart from helping them to graduate to the formal sector. We need more strategic conversation to inform the rethinking of the relative role of the state and the market as macro policy imperative to deepen their shared responsibilities as engines of growth of the economy. In doing so, we need to better harness the potentials of public-private partnership models in infrastructure financing and in re-engineering the public sector service delivery for quality and institutional capability readiness. In this connection, we need to do more to deepen institutional capacity and capability of the public sector for managing commercially centered partnership and complex projects, especially at the level of procuring entities, where the contractual structures that govern PPPs are managed. Instituting good corporate governance principles to deepen public service rules and regulations is very essential for government to take the full benefit of PPPs. In conclusion, and from the Federal Civil Service Commission, we are determined to strengthen gatekeeping for the public administration profession through more robust strategy for promoting and protecting meritocracy, even in the context of federal character diversity management. All with a view to restore competency-based human resource management practices as gateway to reprofessionalize the civil service going forward. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Tunji Olaokwa. And while he was speaking, the representative of His Excellency the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Honorable Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Honorable Barrister Nkiruka Onyojocha, walked in. Honorable Minister, I welcome you. Thank you very much. I welcome you. Our next speaker is a pan-Nigeria man. Born in Oyo State, has schooled virtually all over the world, Edo, Ife, Canada, Texas, virtually all over the world. He is an academic's academic. He has over 20 books, and the ones I can recall here is Africa and the New World Order that he released in the year 2000. And of course, we have the recent ones, Swimming Upstream and the Realities of Leadership in Africa. A total intellectual. He's a majority leader of the House of Representatives. He's representing the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps, Mr. Honorable Benjamin Carlo. Today is also his day. He's a birthday boy. No wonder he's wearing white. Please welcome here Professor Julius Ihebere, Majority Leader representing the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. He said every food you take in Charlton today is on him. Please don't go there. I welcome you, Prof, and congratulations one more time on your birthday.
Thank you very much, Ebere. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by my sister, senior colleague, now Minister of Labor and Employment, the President and DG NECA, my own younger brother and colleague, who is also representing the Speaker at this event. It is not all the time you get the representatives of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker at one event, and you also, to throw in one, you have a president who was a former legislator and a minister, also former leader of the House. So I think NECA is lucky, and this your third edition is starting off well. I apologize up front. I may not be able to stay with you because I have to go declare open a public hearing on corporate social responsibility this morning. But the Deputy Speaker is away to South Africa at the African Union's Pan-African Parliament, leading the Nigerian delegation. But I can assure you his heart is here. As I sat there, he had sent me close to 3-4 messages to know how this event was going. Essentially to say big congratulations on this third edition, and to wish you well and hope that looking at your footprints, we look at where you started from, almost invisible. Now you are very well established, and it is our prayer that you continue to grow from strength to strength. He also believes that NECA could still do more. For 57 years, it's not child's play. But there are still so many contradictions, so many conflicts, problems, challenges, setbacks, roadblocks in Nigerian business sector. We know you are doing your very best. We see the results, but we know you can do more. And it comes from the kind of partnerships that the president read out earlier. Never in the history of the National Assembly has there been more collaboration between legislators and non-actors of the National Assembly. The partnership with civil society, with the private sector, is at a level it has never attained. And I can say that definitively because I was in the 9th Assembly as well. And I think NECA should take advantage of this openness. If you get a copy of our legislative agenda, you will see clearly articulated several policies and programs to enhance partnerships between the private sector, the National Assembly, and the executive. Most Nigerians are waiting to see us quarreling with the executive. It may never happen because when you fight, you don't dialogue, you don't discuss, you don't exchange ideas, you don't reason with one another. It is the interest of the ordinary Nigerian that suffers. We still get our salaries and allowances even when we fight. So now we've decided that the best approach is to open a line of dialogue, work with the executive. Where they are wrong, we let them know, and they do make mistakes, and that is normal. I've been in the other side before, and I know it does happen. But this time, we want to join hands to make sure that the 8-point agenda works, that Nigerians benefit maximally, and that we promote the growth, stability, peace, and progress of Nigeria to the benefit of everyone. So, on behalf of the Deputy Speaker, I once again congratulate you, wish you well on this summit, and assure you that the National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives, the People's House, is open to any form of partnership, collaboration, or cooperation. So we're expecting that after this summit, we should be able to have a direct meeting between the leadership of the House and the leadership of NECA to discuss the way forward. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Professor Julius Ihabere, Majority Leader of the House of Representatives. We thank you representing the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu. We thank you very much. We thank you. While he was speaking, the chairman, the Presidential Fiscal and Tax Reforms Committee, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, also walked in. I welcome you, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. Thank you very much. Also here is a former president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Mansour Ahmed. Are you Mansour Ahmed? Okay, I welcome you. Thank you very much. Let me also welcome very specially presidents and executive secretaries of sectoral employers associations that are here. And now finally, for the goodwill messages, I'd like to welcome here the representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, a man that his friends call Mark P. Representing Anambra East and West Federal Constituency, I'd like to welcome here Right Honorable Peter Anekwe. Or if you are his friend, you call him Mark P.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the President of Nigeria, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, able represented here by the Right Honorable Member, Right Honorable colleagues, our senior colleague, and the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Right Honorable Nkiruka Onyegocha. You're welcome. Your Excellency, the Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Carlo, able represented here by the Leader of the House, Right Honorable Julius Ihombere. So you're welcome. The President of NECA and the DG, other distinguished guests. I am representing the Speaker today. I have to read the remark by the Speaker of Nigerian House of Representatives, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, PhD, on this day of June 25th, 2024. I am delighted to join you today at the 3rd Annual Nigeria Employees Summit. I thank the organizers of this Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, for the invitation to serve as the special guest of honor in this very significant event. Today is no doubt very significant and crucial for the economic development of our nation as we all come together to discuss means and strategies for creating jobs for our terming unemployed. The theme of this year's summit, Harnessing the Power of Reform for Sustainable Job Creation, is a timely and relevant one. As we know, the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has embarked on a series of reforms aimed at creating a more conducive business environment, attracting foreign investment, and stimulating economic growth. These reforms are essential for creating jobs and improving the livelihood of Nigerians. In this era of rapid change and unprecedented challenges, it is essential for us to embrace transformative reforms and adapt to the evolving economic landscape. As leaders in both the public and private sector, we have a shared responsibility to create an enabling environment for business to thrive, attract investment, and generate employment opportunities for our people. The House of Representatives is committed to working with the executive branch to ensure that these reforms are implemented effectively and that they deliver on their promised conducive business, operative environment, and job creation. We believe that by working together, we can create a more prosperous and equitable future for all Nigerians. There is no gainsaying the fact that the private sector is a key driver of economic growth and job creation in Nigeria. However, we recognize the very difficult and sometimes discouraging business and economic environment in the country. As a legislative arms of government, we are very worried about the devastating impact of insecurity on business, the challenges of the organized private sector faced owing to insecurity, to the high exchange rate. We are aware of the debilitating laws, multiple taxation, infrastructure challenges, and many more. Our responsibility as legislators is not just to bemoan this unfortunate situation, but to devise the right legislative tools towards addressing them. It is in this wise that agenda points 2, 3, 4, and 5 of our legislative agenda seeks to reform our laws for economic growth and development, as well as social sector reform and development. Understanding that security is key to business growth and development in Nigeria. Agenda 2 of the legislative agenda commits to the House of Representatives to taking necessary steps towards stemming the tide of insecurity across the country by addressing various forms of crime such as kidnapping, terrorism, banditry, militancy, piracy, along with other forms of criminalities. An atmosphere conducive for business will be established, fostering increased investor confidence, which is crucial for driving economic growth. The commitment has been demonstrated through various legislative measures aimed at strengthening national security architecture, including increased funding allocated towards security agencies, combined with oversight function aimed at ensuring accountability within this institution among other initiatives. Agenda 3 of our legislative agenda focus on law reforms to update some of our anachronistic laws to address contemporary circumstances of the nation. Agenda 4 focus on economic growth and development. This agenda seeks to create a conducive business environment by addressing the challenges of insecurity, multiple taxation, and infrastructure deficiencies. We are committed to enacting legislation that will attract foreign direct investment, promote entrepreneurship, and create jobs for our teeming youths. Agenda 5 of our legislative agenda focus on social sector reform and development. This agenda seeks to improve the quality of the Nigerians by investing in education, healthcare, and social protection. We are committed to enacting legislation that will ensure across the quality education for all Nigerians, strengthen our healthcare system, and provide a social safety net for the vulnerable. I believe that by fostering a culture of collaboration, transparency, and accountability, we can unlock the future potentials of our economy and achieve the aspiration of our renewed hope agenda. Together, we can build a resilient and competitive business environment that empower entrepreneurs, nurture innovation, and pave the way for sustainable growth and development. In conclusion, I want to reaffirm my commitment to supporting policies and initiatives that promote enterprise sustainable competitiveness and inclusive growth. Let us seize this opportunity to exchange ideas, forge partnership, and chart a course towards a more prosperous future for all Nigerians. Thank you, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. The representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, Honorable Peter Anakwe. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome here, representing the Executive Chairman of Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Dr. Chris Uwadoka is also here with us. Where are you, Dr. Chris? Okay, we welcome you. Thank you very much. You put our hands together for you. I also like to inform you that we have our exhibitions outside. His Excellency the President, represented by the Honorable Minister of State for Labor, will be leading us in a few moments to tour the exhibition sites. But let me also inform you, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama will be delivering the keynote address, and that is also part of what we are doing here. But right now, let me invite Mr. Amuyiwa Adebayo, Chairman, NECA Committee of Finance Experts, to come here and coordinate the launching of the NECA Securities Exchange Commission Securities Issuers Forum. All right, you're welcome.
Good morning, all. Good morning, all. All protocols duly observed. Good day, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and respected members of Nigerian business community. It's a great honor to welcome you to the NECA 3rd Annual Employer Summit. My name is Olumiwa Adebayo, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair for this summit. Today we gather at a pivotal moment for the Nigerian economy and its capital market. It is with great pride and anticipation that I introduce the launch of the NECA Security Issuers Forum, a platform designed to revolutionize our capital market landscape by fostering increased participation and engagement of companies in public issuance and listing of securities. The conception of this forum stems from the collaborative efforts of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Our shared vision is to address the declining trends in public offerings and listing, and to create a more vibrant, inclusive, and dynamic capital market that truly reflect the diverse potential of our economy. The NECA SEC Advocacy Report, which is titled The Revitalization of the Equities Market and Attraction of the New Public Offers and Further Offers, which are also unveiling today, underscores the critical challenges and opportunities within our equity market. The report highlights the stark reality that our market capitalization to GDP ratio remains significantly lower than that of comparable markets. Despite registering millions of entities by Corporate Affairs Commission, only a fraction are listed on our exchanges. This discrepancy points to the urgent need for strategic intervention and reforms. Key recommendations from the report include implementing regulatory reforms to simplify the issuance process and attract more companies, enhancing market infrastructures, and leverage technological advancement to improve efficiency and transparency, promoting investors' education and confidence, focusing on long-term benefits of equity investments, encouraging government support and incentives to foster a conducive environment for listing and investment. The establishment of Security Issuers Forum is a testament to our commitment to this recommendation. It aims to create awareness about the benefit of raising funds through capital markets, attract and encourage more companies, including SMEs, to list on our exchanges, promote dialogue and collaboration among issuers, regulators, and the stakeholders, advocate for sound corporate governance and ethical practices within listed entities. This forum will serve as a catalyst for economic growth, providing a robust platform for dialogue, innovation, and strategic action. It will enable us to harness the full potential of the Nigerian capital market in driving national development and economic renaissance. As we embark on this transformative journey, it is my pleasure to introduce two key figures who have been instrumental to these initiatives. First, I will invite the Director General of NECA, whose leadership and vision has been pivotal in driving this agenda forward, to share his insight and perspective. Following him, we will hear from the Director General of the Securities Exchange Commission, SEC, whose regulatory acumen and commitment to market development continue to shape future of our capital markets. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Director General of NECA and the DG of SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, Dr. Emotomi Agama. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by the Honorable Minister of State for Labor. All protocols duly observed. It's indeed a great pleasure to be here, to be speaking at this forum, the NECA Employer Summit, on this day, the 25th day of June 2024. I'm excited because prior to my appointment as the Director General of the SEC, I was part of the formative process of the Security Issuers Forum. I was even in Abeokuta, where NECA engaged employers into understanding exactly what are the opportunities available in the capital market. But here I am today standing as Director General to further discuss that is very, very important and useful in the development of the Nigerian capital markets, more so the Nigerian economy. Companies exist by their nature of being institutions that warehouse securities. So no company exists without securities, be it equity or debt, in whatever form. What matters or what differentiates them possibly is the distribution of such instruments. And so it is critical that we grow companies that will help in the redistribution of wealth. The renewed hope agenda of Mr. President speaks clearly to that every Nigerian must live above poverty. And how do we do that? How do we redistribute wealth? An important vehicle that has stood the test of time forever and will forever be so is the capital market. One of the major challenges of our companies is the inability to source capital for their business. Hence, there is this mismatch that will always happen, whereby we go for short-term funding to run long-term projects. Companies are not meant to use short-term funding for their development. And the major source of long-term funding is the capital market. So the capital market in itself is a major tool and vehicle for the development of industries, companies, and indeed the nation. And so that is why this is very, very essential. So the Security Issuers Forum is a forum designed to prepare the companies and to give them light as to what they should do and how they should source capital in the development of this company, thereby creating employment besides wealth redistribution. So it gives me a great pleasure to be part of this event today, to deliver this goodwill message to the NECA Employer Summit and formal launch of the Security Issuers Forum, a collaborative initiative between the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA. It is as well with a great sense of enthusiasm that I address you today in anticipation of the far-reaching positive effects in the operationalization of the forum that will have on the economy at large and specifically on the Nigerian capital market. As the apex regulatory body of the Nigerian capital market, The Securities and Exchange Commission supports all initiatives aimed at enhancing the development of the market. Perhaps for those that do not know, the Securities and Exchange Commission, indeed the Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission, is the only Securities and Exchange Commission in the world that has a two-pronged objective, that of regulation and market development. So it becomes very, very important and instructive that we are doing this, because this falls squarely into the, the arena of market development. Stakeholder engagement is an important tool through which regulations, market participants, and other relevant stakeholders interact and discuss pertinent regulatory issues and new developments impacting the market, with the aim of taking the market to higher levels. This was a major reason behind the inauguration of the Working Committee of the Securities Issuers Forum in August 2021. Though the SIF Working Committee, NECA, on behalf of its member companies, have facilitated the extension of the initial timeline for complying with the guidelines on the implementation of the provisions of Section 60 to 63 of the Investment and Securities Act, ISA, and the implementation of the framework for internal control over financial reporting until December 2023, and structured and unstructured trainings and enlightenment programs organized by the SEC to ensure public companies and their officers understood their roles and responsibilities with regards to the new SEC framework on the Section 60 to 63 of the ISA. Again, I was a key participant and a driver of this particular section of the ISA before now, and that is the section on internal control over financial reporting, speaking to the responsibility of companies and directors in the accounts of these companies, these institutions, so that they can be more responsible companies in building, a viral economy. The suspension of the proposed new rule and requiring public companies to report on penalties and penalties imposed on them. The implementation of early submission of audited financial statements in lieu of filing of fourth quarter financial statement. The submission being made to the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy for further extension of tax waiver on bond transactions. Engagement with the Corporate Affairs Commission on recent regulations affecting capital market activities, and the relaxation of the SEC requirements on wet ink signature on transaction documents in place of electronic signature. These are all initiatives to enhance business facilitation. My sister is here, Dr. Jumoke, regarding the business facilitation processes, even in the capital market. We are so much in support of that process, because what does it do? It provides an enabling environment for companies to come to the market, for companies to actually enjoy the benefits of coming to the market. The forum, which is neither a SEC forum nor a NECA forum, but a forum of issuers of securities, has among others the following mandates: maintain regular contact with regulators, policymakers, and SROs, advise regulators, policymakers on regulations affecting companies, and promote sound corporate governance and ethical conduct among issuers, and also to promote healthy competition among companies and maintain optimum business environment by monitoring of all issues of direct relevance to businesses. While urging issuers to be part of this wonderful initiative, I'm confident that the establishment of this forum will facilitate the following on behalf of its members. One, create awareness of the benefits of raising funds through the market. Attract, motivate, encourage more listings of companies, including SMEs. Maintain regular contact with the SEC, SROs, and other key stakeholders on measures to improve the capital market. Promote dialogue among all issuers on matters of mutual concern. Promote sound corporate governance and ethical conduct among issuers. Formulate proposals to improve regulation, to increase the securities exchanges' attractiveness as a place where the capital for economic entities can be raised. Promote competition of issuing companies and the capital market. Create a wider range of investment opportunities to investors. Deepen and broaden the Nigerian capital market, democratize the issuance of securities among Nigerians, and indeed the redistribution of wealth among Nigerians. I'm confident that the Nigerian regulatory environment has a lot to benefit from the workings of this forum. I therefore wish you all well and earnestly look forward to collaborating with the leadership of the SIF in our aspiration to engage to emerge as a top 20 global economy in building an economy that is viral, an economy that is strong, and an economy that makes its people. Once again, congratulations on this, and I believe strongly that we will reap the benefits of this activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At the other side, was a comrade DG, but it's not a comrade DG. It's a co-DG. What else will you expect me to say? I think it will be much more appropriate to just adopt what the DG have said, and also adopt what my colleague Muiwa have said concerning the SRF. And that speaks to the comment I made earlier about our footprints in building collaborations across board. The DG also mentioned collaboration with PEBEC, and if you are discerning, you realize everything is all the puzzles, they are fitting together. Without much time, before I hand over to Mr. Muiwa to take, I just want to recognize one of also our key partners. You wonder why are they our partners? We can have that conversation after now. The ambassador of Spain is here. Mr. Joan Cell is also one of the Spain ambassador. Spain embassy is also one of our key partners in driving investment and in driving trade in Nigeria. Please, let's welcome John Cell, please. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us. Permit me to call quickly Her Excellency, the Honorable Minister for State, Labor and Employment, representing the Commander-in-Chief, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, as we request most respectful man to join us upstairs to help us to unveil the publication, the revitalization of the equities market and attraction of new public offers and further offers. Mr. Muiwa will coordinate the unveiling. I also want to request most respectfully the President of NECA to also join us upstairs. And I must also say this very importantly, that I like the DG said, this document and this collaboration, the SIF, predates my coming to be the DG of NECA. So credit also goes to my predecessor, and I believe his predecessors, that have done the background work of building this collaboration, and we are here to unveil and to celebrate the work that they started, which we are all seeing today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG NECA. Also, we would like to invite our distinguished guest in no particular order. We'll invite the representative of the Speaker of the House. Thank you very much. A round of applause. We'll invite the ambassador from Spain. Thank you very much. We'll invite the former Minister for Trade and Investments. Sir, thank you very much. Round of applause for him. We'll also invite the special advisor, senior special advisor on PEBEC and investment. We'll invite the current chairman of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform to the floor, and also other distinguished guests. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. The unveiling will be done by the representative of Mr. President, who is the Minister for Labor and Investment. And in doing so, I believe she will have one or two speeches to give to us. Thank you, ma'am.
Am I doing my speech now?
No. Just the unveiling. Yeah.
I'll see what Okay, your normal. On behalf of Mr. President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, I unveil this to the glory of God the Father and to the improvement of renewed hope agenda and prosperous Nigeria.
Yeah, we'll move to the center for his picture. Madam Co-Chair.
Well, the Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. There we have the lunch. The Honorable Minister have decided to remain here. So it is with much pleasure that I welcome the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, represented here by the Honorable Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Honorable Barrister Nkiru Onyejocha, who will be delivering the President's address. Honorable President.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. If you don't say this morning is good, oh, good morning, everybody. Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, ably represented by the Honorable Member McBee, and Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, ably represented by the Leader of the House, the DG, NECA. Please, because of time, I plead to adopt the already established protocols. I'm pleased to deliver the President's address this morning. So everything I say now is the thought of Mr. President and not mine. I'm pleased to deliver this address at the 3rd Nigeria Employers Summit that is being organized by the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA. The theme of this year's summit, Economic Renaissance, Harnessing Government Reforms and Private Sector Agility, is apt as a government since its inception, has rolled out several reforms aimed at rebuilding the economy and with far-reaching impact on organized businesses. It is without doubt that this administration is committed to strengthening the private sector and rebuilding our economy. In our quest for economic renaissance and national renewal, we have had to embark on various reforms to navigate our nation back from the path of economic ruin. These reforms are not only necessary but also very important if we are to preserve our national wealth and lay a solid foundation for our national development. This administration will continue to do all that is necessary to ensure the sustainability of businesses, attract foreign direct investment, and make our nation the pride of Africa as it used to be. Are the current challenges surmountable? Of course, yes, and resounding yes. They are surmountable and we will all surmount them. While there are challenges as a result of the reforms, I want to assure you that this administration is doing all that is necessary to cushion the pains and make life better for all citizens. With our renewed hope 8-point agenda, I want to assure you of our continuous commitment to rebuild our nation and make it reclaim its pride of place, not only in Africa, but also in the whole world. We will continue with various bold and strategic measures where necessary to address the deep-rooted structural deficiencies and systemic challenges that plagued the economy over the years. Despite our country's complexities and some citizens' resistance to change, we will remain resolute in our commitment to steering the nation towards stability and prosperity. One of the foremost steps we have taken was the withdrawal of the unsustainable fuel subsidy, which drained approximately $10 billion annually, or 2% of the nation's GDP. This move allowed for the redirection of funds towards critical sectors such as healthcare, education, infrastructure, and security, which directly impacts citizens' well-being and prosperity. The policy has already led to significant reduction in petrol importation and increased monthly receipts for states and local governments from the Federal Account Allocation Committee, FAC. The administration also ended the foreign exchange subsidy, unifying the foreign forex rate market to reflect the actual value of the naira. Reforms in the Bureau de Change, BDC operations, and the lifting of forex restrictions on certain imports boosted investor confidence in Nigeria. These measures helped the Central Bank of Nigeria settle a $7 billion backlog in foreign exchange, making the Nigerian Stock Exchange the top performing bourse globally. There are ongoing reforms within the fiscal space. I therefore look forward to the outcomes and recommendations of this summit. I am sure that the government representatives here present will bring forward the recommendations for appropriate action. As you continue to deliberate in this summit, I wish to commend the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, for its many positive impact in the promotion of enterprise, sustainability, and competitiveness, and indeed national growth. And also congratulate the DG NECA for being re-elected at the ILO board recently. Congratulations, Nigeria. We will continue to partner and collaborate with like-minded organizations that are focused on national development to drive our economy towards growth and sustainable development. It is my singular honor, therefore, and privilege to declare this summit open. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, everybody on the white seat, please join the representative of the president for a group photograph. Everybody on the white seat. Can we remove this podium, please? Thank you very much. We'll leave the DG, the president of NECA, and the presidential representative. The rest of all will take our seats. As we also say, Comrade Issa Remo, thank you very much for coming. We welcome you. Thank you very much. All those on the red seat, you can join us up here now. Red seat. Red seat. Please, council members, please join them. The stage here might not take all of us. Some people might also line up downstairs so that we can all be in the picture. I want to believe council members are also part of this photograph. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, council members. Okay, they're already part of it. All right, thank you. So the rest of us will quickly go take our seats. We are getting ready now for the keynote speech. Only the Director General and the President of NECA will lead the representative of the president to the exhibition site. The rest of us will be on our seats as we're getting ready now to kick off with the keynote address. Just the president and the DG, the rest will go to our seats. Let's just settle down. Let's take our seats. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the driving theme of this summit is harnessing government reforms and private sector agility. The man that will be delivering this is not alien to this kind of topics. He used to be the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, and currently he is the Chairman, Africa Capital Alliance. On your behalf, let me welcome here Dr. Okechukwu Enalama. Welcome, sir.
Your Excellencies here gathered, including the representatives of the President, the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, and all the other dignitaries that are here, the Ambassador to Spain. Thank you all for supporting this very important summit. I also want to rely, as I've been advised, on the protocols, because I know there are many important people here, particularly from the private sector, which is what I like about this conference, that this is a real attempt by the private sector to engage government in a very meaningful way to build a robust, prosperous economy, and by extension, Nigeria. So I'm very, very glad to be invited to address us today as a keynote speaker at this very important summit. I'm going to be using a slide presentation because I want to take us through a story. And I hope you will identify with this story and work together with us to build it. It's interesting that our theme is economic renaissance, harnessing government reforms and private sector agility. This is something we've talked about a lot. The good news, of course, is that we are not the only ones who have spoken about this. If you just go to the next slide. But we certainly are at a stage where we would like to look back 1 year today, 3 years today, 5 years today, and say we are in a transition. And look back and say this is what helped us to transition away from the difficulties we have faced and the challenges we've faced to the breakthrough that we've always desired. As you know, each succeeding administration comes with its own program and talks about why this is the time for this transition. I had a mentor who used to tell us that you live life forwards, but you understand it when you look back. My prayer is that we'll look back and say, this administration finally got it right. Because it's in our collective interest that it happens. But to do that, the administration clearly would need to work with the private sector. To put my presentation or my speech in context, I'd like us to reflect on some of the legacy issues. If you just go back, if you go to the next slide, please. None of this will come as a surprise. In fact, the earlier speakers today have mentioned them, but just permit me to put them in context. We've talked about the unification of the exchange rate and how the implications of that. That's one of the legacy issues that this administration met and is addressing. We talked about, we know about the overdependence on oil and the fact that the foreign exchange earnings depend on that, and the oil production has been struggling for a while. We know about our infrastructure challenges in terms of the deficits. And let me say one thing about infrastructure. Maybe that's why it's such a stubborn problem. It is very clear that which by whatever means you get your infrastructure right, it is the bedrock of competitiveness. It is the bedrock of, an economy that will thrive. So maybe that's part of the reason why it's been such a stubborn problem. But I believe if we can crack it, we will crack the problems that many of the problems we face. One of which is high unemployment, both unemployment and what you might call underemployment. Of course, there's the whole regulatory environment. I'm glad that Dr. Jumoke Oduwole was here. I worked closely with her to set up the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, like she said. And the vision is to create an enabling environment, something we've been talking about for a generation at least, if not much longer. And of course, there is the major issue of leakages that of sorts that are undermining both trust and our economic development. What I thought I would do, therefore, given this, is to look at what is this administration actually doing. Somebody once said that strategy is not what you say you do. People talk about strategy, but it's what you actually do. So I want us to look at what are the pillars of reforms of this administration, because the administration has been there for a year. And I know there is the renewed hope 8-point agenda, but for somebody looking at it just critically, these 4 stood out for me. And I believe that these 4 are necessary and sufficient to build a robust economy if one actually follows through on them. The first one is the role of the private sector. And of course, this summit is right at the heart of that. Harnessing and leveraging the private sector to build the economy. The second one is attracting investment, particularly foreign investment, something I know the administration is very passionate about. And then there's the whole area of technology, using technology to drive revenues, using technology to drive efficiencies, using technology to digitize government services and make it easier to do business in our country. But I would say probably the most important, because this is one that takes courage, but it's something that this administration has signaled that they believe in, and I think could do a lot of good if it's well done, is embracing what you might call orthodox economic policies. Certainly that's what the central bank has. That's the stated position of the central bank, orthodox monetary policies, implementing market liberalization and attempting to maintain fiscal discipline. I say attempting because the pressures are the other way. You don't need to be a genius to know that the pressures on the fiscal side are enormous. And it will take a lot of discipline to maintain, some fiscal prudence. What I thought I would therefore do as the main thrust of my speech to us today is to look at countries that have adopted similar policies, right, as these pillars, and how well they did. And I just chose a number of countries that, looking back, we can agree have been success stories. So these are examples of countries that have utilized these pillars we've talked about, leveraging the private sector, basically working with foreign investors and investment, and leveraging technology, and equally importantly, relying on, what you might call liberal economic policies or orthodox economic policies to build their economy. The good news is that some of the most successful countries in the world, at least in terms of the economy, have actually relied on these policies. And I would say that therefore, even if you are a critic of this government, that you have to accept that the policies they have identified are the right policies. The question is, are we going to follow through? Remember that strategy is what you do, not what you say you do. We know that the countries that follow through on these policies actually achieve results. And I want us to just examine some of these countries and how they achieve those results very quickly. So I'll go through them one by one. I want to start with India. If you go to the next slide, please. Now, we all know the story of India, that in 1991, India, shared some, frankly, unfortunately, very similar challenges to the ones we face today. It was a country that was dealing with very significant balance of payment crisis in terms of just the fiscal challenges they were dealing with. It was dealing with high inflation. It was dealing with the flight of capital and a number of other challenges that we are still grappling with. Then came in the government of Prime Minister Rao, and crucially had a finance minister, Dr. Singh, who eventually became prime minister as well, who decided to take some very courageous steps. They initiated some very bold economic reforms based on orthodox policies. You know, they liberalized the economy. Remember that India came from a socialist background with people like Gandhi and so on. You know, very well-meaning ideas, but frankly that are easier said than done in terms of, you know, getting results. And they liberalized the economy. And India is still thriving 30 years on. In fact, I could say maybe even 30 years plus on. You know, and today India is certainly one of the most successful economies. What did they do? Note this following. One, they empowered the private sector. And of course, this is why we're gathered here today, as you know, in this employer summit. You know, the private sector has an extremely important role to play. When I served in government, one of the reasons why I knew that we weren't going to get it right fully, not being a prophet, but I knew it, because at that stage, there was still a lot of debate around the role of the private sector. There was a deep suspicion of the private sector, just in terms of the intentions of the private sector. Whether you suspect the private sector or not, one thing we know is that government cannot build the economy the way a private sector, if they're empowered, can do it. Because they do it as owners. Government does it as an agent. And this is all the other thing. I mean, the whole agency problem is poorly understood. People talk about it, but they don't really understand it. You know, when I served as a minister here, I mean, I spoke to my colleagues, and they spoke as if they were interchangeable with Nigeria, whereas we're agents. An agent, you know, has agency challenges. In other words, you find that there's an inherent conflict between the interest of an agent and a principal, right? It doesn't mean you can't resolve it, but it starts with awareness that that conflict exists, that that tension exists. You know, when you're not aware, you can actually be acting in your own interest in the name of the principal and just carry on. You know, and as you know, that is really at the heart of corruption and the agency problem of corruption. You know, it's basically people acting in their own interest, self-interest, you know, on behalf of maybe all of us as a nation. And this is a well-traveled road. It's a problem that is well understood. In fact, somebody speaking in this same Abuja many years ago, for those of you that used to attend the Nigerian Economic Summit, I remember he gave a definition of corruption. He said it was monopoly plus discretion minus accountability. Government, by definition, is a monopoly. You know what I mean? We don't have competing government. The federal government, you know, it's a monopoly. I mean, it has to run things, which is why if government is doing something, then and has maximum discretion and is not accountable, then you are likely to get, you know, issues around agency problems and corruption and leakages. You know, which is why you also need to, you know, look at those things and solve for them, because government has a role to play, no question about it. But the most important role is that enabling role, that role that creates the environment, which is what India did. By empowering the private sector, they started to see results. The reason why people talk about free market principles is also for the same reason, because it literally means that you're allowing competition. It means that you're allowing people to play while you establish a level playing field and allow many players. You know, and then of course when you talk about technology, one of the most potent things technology does is to take away the human element, the discretionary element. Because, you know, technology by its very nature is, you know, not discretionary. You know, and well, we have seen the results. If you look at India today, they have exchange reserves in excess of $600 billion US, growth rates of 7 to 8%. And of course, the government of Modi that just came back, you know, has continued with some of those policies, basically working with the private sector to build India. And the results have been excellent. If you go to the next country, Singapore, Singapore is even a more interesting story. A city-state that was struggling, that wanted to be part of Malaysia, and was basically kicked out. And under the visionary leadership of Lee Kuan Yew and his successors, you know, they in particular, you know, believed very deeply on the role, you know, integrity and openness and transparency and markets can play, you know, for a country. And particularly for a country that wants to, you know, be an enabler for the rest of the world, because they are a much smaller country, but they punch way above their weight, because a lot is done in Singapore as a staging ground, as an entrepreneur and all those things. You know, and again, they leverage technology a lot. You know, and the point I'm trying to make is that these are the same policies our current government is talking about. Can you imagine for a moment what will happen if we actually implemented? Strategy is what you do, not what you say you do. You know, and I can tell you that if we actually implement, and the people in this room, as mostly private sector players, have a major role to play. The good thing about the government is that, like, a lot of the players in government today were also once in the private sector, and many of them, you know, have an understanding of markets, which is why they have embraced markets. You know, but the thing is, we will partner with them as a private sector, like we're discussing today, to build the Nigeria of our dreams. Of course, the results from Singapore have been nothing sort of miraculous. I'm sure that even in their wildest optimistic estimates, they will not expect to be where they are today. They're simply punching way above their weight. If we go to Rwanda, I wanted to come nearer home to Rwanda. Again, talking about visionary leadership, you know, I mean, Paul Kagame, you know, was given basically a basket case. You know, I met him a number of times when I was in public service. And one of the things that struck me about the man is the humility and the simplicity of the man. Obviously, he punches again way above his weight as a small country. But it's this leadership of a determined leadership, what he can do. By deciding that he will work with the private sector, not just local, but international. He's a friend of the private sector, a friend of business, and really, really cuts them, very charismatic. By deciding to create an enabling environment, when the World Bank was still doing its ease of doing business, Rwanda pursued it with vigor and just kept climbing up those ranks, you know, and of course leveraging technology. Again, we have seen great results. I mean, it's not yet out of the woods in terms of poverty, but there is no question that Rwanda is a place people are looking as a center of excellence in Africa today. And I believe that, like, if they continue on that trajectory, they will be under Singapore of sorts. What about South Korea? I've seen analogies, or should I say, people comparing Nigeria with South Korea some not too long ago, and how South Korea took off. The good thing about South Korea is that, like, we know how it took off, and it has a lot of similarities with us because we can do the same thing. You know, the business partnered with government in a very big way in South Korea. The so-called chaebols that they have, these are big business houses. You know, the Samsungs, Hyundai, SKG Group, and so on. You know, we have our own equivalents. And the truth is that, like, we have many more we have more than they have or they had. You know, and again, I believe that, like, there's an opportunity for business to partner with government in a very empowering or empowered way to build the economy. You know, when I was discussing this, coming here with a friend of mine, a very erudite friend, a very sound friend, he said to me that, like, if I had to leave one message in my presentation, it should be, you know, to challenge or encourage the government to partner with business in a very meaningful way to build the economy. Basically, by thinking about which sectors of the economy we want to build. He used power as an example. You know, if you look at what Alhaji Dangote has done with the refinery, spending over $15 billion, you know, and building a humongous refinery, he's able to do that because he is on the hook for the money. If it was a public government project, you know, we would have spent the money, we'll just basically be looking for how much of it actually went into the project. But if you go and borrow $15 billion as a businessman, and for some reason you don't repay it, of course the rest of your business will be toast. You know, and so people pay attention, and we can leverage that energy, that engine, that commitment can be leveraged by government to actually build out even the power that is a stubborn problem. I honestly believe that we can partner with the private sector. Just last week, we hosted a group of Canadian businesses in Lagos. Some of you may have seen they met with the Minister of Finance, they met with the Central Bank Governor, they met with the private sector. One of them is a major energy player that was offering to come here and build, you know, just, you know, several gigawatts of energy for us. And I believe they can do it. It might take a few years, but fortunately they met with government. That's the kind of partnership we're talking about. You know, and I believe that, like, that's what Nigeria requires. To be honest, if we continue to rely on government to do it, you know, the agency problems and the fact that government changes every 4 years. And then there's a trap we fall into. Every government talks about things that the guys that came before them didn't know what they were doing. And it's a human thing, it's hubris, but we don't know it. I remember when I got to Abuja, with all the goodwill that President Buhari had, you know, I know some of the people that were in the previous administration. Some of them are global stars, right? But you think that we were the stars. Because the whole idea is that, like, you come in, and you come with your own agenda, and you start afresh. It doesn't work. And that's where NECA comes in. That's where the private sector comes in. Professor Michael Porter, one of the leading professors in competition and strategy, very well known around the world, spoke to the business community in Lagos several years ago. And he challenged the business community to be a long-term partner of government, because government changes every 4 years in a democracy. I mean, even if the same government comes back, they might come back with a new agenda or a new set of players. But the private sector stays there. You know, so you can imagine if we were the kind of partner that really were committed to projects that will last the distance, as opposed to a revolving door thing where every 4 years we start afresh. Right now is renewed hope agenda. I don't know how it's different from, you know, the economic recovery growth plan, and you know these things. I remember speaking to you know, the minister that took over from me, you know, and one of the things that struck me was that, like, we didn't really talk about what we needed to continue. You know, it was more about, you know, what needed to change, which is fine. But I know that, like, unless we have continuity, it's very difficult to do things that will last the distance in a very short time. This is a marathon. It's not a 100-meter dash. You know, and I want to challenge us, the business community, to take the responsibility to partner with government. That's why places like South Korea survive. The reason is the Samsungs, you know, the Hondas, the LGs, and so on, because they are there. They are there. You know, the same thing is true of Japan. The Keiretsus there, they are there. They're not going anywhere. You know, the prime minister may change, but they're there. And I think NECA is there. I was looking up NECA. NECA was established in 1957, pre-independence. You know, and if you look at the lofty objectives of NECA, they stand, you know, as a veritable partner to government, organized private sector, something that I think really is desperately needed, you know, if we're going to get the kind of results that these other players got. That then leads me to what are our recommendations, you know, when we think about Nigeria. Please, let's go to the next slide. Thank you. I want to start again from where this government is at, because, I mean, it's good to understand what the government is actually doing. If you look at the current government, it's, you know, taking some very bold steps. You know, our prayer and desire is that those steps will last the distance and get the results. The monetary policy reforms are very bold, right? I mean, if you think about what it takes to unify the exchange rate, to decide to basically adopt you know, monetary policy rates that will fight inflation, right? Just to contain that monster of inflation, and in some respects create more economic stability. We met with the central bank governor just last week when they had this Canadian delegation, and I tell you, he was very crystal clear on where they were going. And they certainly didn't leave the room feeling that they didn't know where the central bank was going, which for me is in itself a big deal. Just that clarity. You know, because, you know, one of the most important roles of reserve banks and central banks is signaling. You know, you have to have clarity on where you are taking the country in terms of monetary policy, and this central bank certainly does. You know, if you come to the fiscal side, there's also been some very bold reforms to take out this fuel subsidy, which arguably can bring down a government if it's mishandled or not handled properly, is very bold. And clearly you've had that stated today by the representative of the president. The tax reforms are going on. I know the chairman of our tax committee is here, so thank you for coming today. I mean, it's a big deal, you know, because we know that, like, the main source of revenues for government should be taxes. A government that relies on oil rather than taxes to run, you know, has a fundamental problem. It may not be accountable because, you know, the government may not account the same way that people have to account for people who pay taxes, you know, do. And I believe that it is the right direction to want to, you know, plug those leakages, expand the tax pool, and get us to get into that social contract, you know, with our government and with our country. You know, so again, the way you're utilizing technology and all the wonderful things people are doing, I hope will be our maximum results. Of course, many of the sectors are reforming as well. Next slide, please. In the interest of time, I won't go through them, but let me point out one or two. I think electricity is a big deal. I think the fact, again, that the government wants to adopt, market reflective or cost reflective tariffs, wants to basically use the kind of policies that encourage investment. It's an opportunity that must not be wasted. If I have one concern, it will be how do we make sure that these bold policies are not squandered. I hope you can still hear me. It's one thing to take some of these very bold steps or stances, or take a bold stance. One of the economists I spoke to, one of the leading economists in the country, said if there's one thing the government needs to do better is to bundle the key things it's doing, so that as a bundle, as a package, you get the result. If you do them sequentially, one at a time, it might be underwhelming, right? You might get the pain, but not the gain. And I think the government is beginning to do that. But again, I will challenge the private sector, to sit down and partner with government to make sure that happens. The digital transformation is under one. Clearly, technology, we're in the technology century without any shadow of doubt. And we must, as a country, leverage technology, whether it's to streamline government operations, the public service delivery, or to foster innovation. Again, there is no doubt that this is, so on the surface, it will look like the government is doing the right things, at least in terms of policy direction. We're not dealing with the issue of implementation and the depth, rigor, and robustness of implementation. That then leads to the question, how can we help? What should Nigeria do? And I'm looking at this mostly from the private sector perspective. How can we better harness the private sector? How can we form the kind of strategic partnership countries like South Korea, Japan, Brazil in the past formed with the private sector and lifted, did the heavy lifting? Because the private sector is motivated to do the heavy lifting because, that it's fueled by profit, it's fueled by, their long-term nature. They're not doing it. Because one of the challenges people face when you are doing something after about 3 or 4 years, even if you are well-meaning and you're altruistic and just love your country, you can't help thinking about what happens after 3 or 4 years. Solomon, the wisest man, said that it's vanity that a man accumulates all this thing only to pass it on to another. So at times people are affected by the short-term nature of the administration. And I think one way to solve for that, I'll keep emphasizing, is this rule to give the things that require time, to private sector to implement, so that when they're in the game, they're there for the long haul. I also think that in terms of incentives, government has a major role to play. Because kind of incentives you need for somebody to put down billions of dollars to build something is not the same incentives you need for doing small things. So if you go and check all these countries I've talked about, it was a deep partnership. These people knew that government will last the distance. Whether it was written into the constitution, whether it was written into the culture, whether, that's what we need. And I believe that that's what we should be asking for. So one of the things that impressed me when I was, serving in Abuja here was we formed this industrial competitiveness and policy advisory council. And the private sector came in full force. They were very clear what they wanted, and we really wanted them to have what they wanted because we wanted to set particular targets on industrialization, on special economic zones, just things that will create the industrial infrastructure for the country, at least from the point of view of the ministry I looked after. And the question was, what will it take to do this? The same question can be asked about power. What will it take to deliver power, to the country? What will it take to deliver the critical infrastructure we need, whether it's in terms of rail or roads or any other area, agriculture, And honestly, if we ask those questions, we'll get the right answers, provided we're prepared to do it. And technology definitely has a big role to play. I'm glad that the technology minister is very dynamic and clearly wants to adopt a nationwide initiative to just build our infrastructure technology-wise and improve literacy. This will pay off for many years to come. And then this idea of technology and innovation hubs is also very important. We must have centers of excellence, since we can't build everything at once. Just places where we deepen the infrastructure so that in those areas, businesses that go in there or services that go in there will be world-class, so we can be competitive. And then the role of foreign investment. I was very impressed with how government embraced these investors that came last week. You know, like I said, there wasn't, I mean, in fact, they prepared for the meeting with us. The coordinating minister of the economy, the central bank governor, you know, you could see that like they want to walk the talk. They genuinely want to attract foreign direct investment. You know, and I believe that this is an opportunity. But foreign investors are going to come, they will want to work with the private sector. You know, so again, those of us that are in this room will have to ask ourselves, what role are we playing, you know, in attracting these foreign investors? Can we partner with them? What role are we playing in unlocking the capital that is available to not just Nigeria, but Nigerians? A lot of our capital is also sitting abroad. Maybe we qualify as foreign investors. Maybe if Nigerians are given the incentives, maybe they can even write a check. Because I'm sure that, you know, tens of billions of dollars can come in if Nigerians and Nigerians in diaspora, you know, actually were investing the way they would invest if they were really encouraged that they would get the returns on their capital. Which then comes back to this issue of enabling free market. You know, there's something about economic orthodoxy which is very rational. It basically says that people are acting in their own interest, and you create an environment for them to do that. It unlocks an incredible amount of energy. You know, it's certainly a superior system to one that appeals to sentiments. You know, people say here, why can't people, you know, why can't they love their country? Of course, they love their country by loving themselves because they are the country. You know, so we have to create that kind of alignment where what's good for the country is good for its citizens and is good for, frankly, the important stakeholders, employers, employees. You know, and I hope when we deal with this thing, we deal with it from that perspective that this government wants to bring, which is a more rational perspective to problem solving versus a more sentimental approach to it. You know, and I believe that like if we do that, we'll see great results. I'll add two more things before I go to what NECA can do as I conclude. You know, there's something about transparency. There's something about not saying, trust me. You know, one of the things that surprised me about my time in Abuja was the level of, it was almost a lack of sophistication, where a person says, trust me, I am honest. Even myself, I'm a pastor. I mean, it's not I can't be doing business with you and say, why can't you trust me? I need to show you. I need to demonstrate that I'm trustworthy. I need to be transparent. You know, and I believe that like introducing transparency, government saying that I'm not saying this is what I would do, come and check. Private sector, that's the way you build. You know, we don't build by necessarily, you know, creating unnecessary weight on people, you know, without the necessary resources to deliver. You know, and I want to challenge us again to engage in the kind of dialogue, which takes me to my last slide on what can NECA do in addition to the advocacy role it's already playing. What more can it do? You know, and I believe that like this idea of unifying the private sector voice, not in terms, I mean, private sector players will compete. I go back to Michael Porter. For those of you that are students of strategy and Michael Porter, the great genius of what he brought to strategy was for people to understand that an industry first has to make itself attractive before it deals with the competition within. You know, he says that the people that eat your lunch are the suppliers, the alternatives, the substitutes, you know, the customers, that if they have the power, will try to take away all your profits, and so on, the government, and so on. You know, and the point is that, like, if you think of ourselves as a country, right, we have to work together. You know, the private sector has to work together to create an attractive business climate for everybody, which is where NECA comes in. Before then, the players can compete to see how much of the pie they get. If it's a basket case, we all lose. You know, and so I think in gathering here today, I'm really encouraged to see the number of agencies and different players that are represented. And I hope we can all work together as we get into the panel sessions, the dialogue, you know, to say, what can we do that is win-win-win? It's win for the private sector, it's win for the government, it's win for the citizens, it's win for the international community, represented by the ambassador of Spain, who has come to watch as, as an ambassador. You know, it would be nice if we were that. It's what I call enlightened self-interest. Enlightened self-interest looks at the interest of the other party in a way that, like, working together, we can create something that is win-win, as opposed to win-lose or lose-win or lose-lose. You know, and I believe that that's the way we should conduct our affairs. You know, and we should be proactive in influencing policy. You know, when we think about the package that can help the government deliver on these bold reforms that they embarked upon, I believe the missing piece, a lot of it is from the private sector. if only we can engage in a way that we can bring those missing pieces. Government wants to attract capital. The capital is going to come from the private sector, whether it's international or local. The government wants to see infrastructure built, competitiveness. A lot of those things will happen by us saying this is how we want, what we need. And I believe that as we do so, we'll have the people that are, the stakeholders from the other side will listen to us. Let me conclude by talking about workforce, because I know that that's something NECA is particularly interested in. After all, it is the Employers Consultative Association of the country. I believe that you can't take on a more important priority. That what will it take to build a viable, skilled workforce? During my time as a Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, this was a problem that intrigued me. And when you study the countries that have almost full employment, you find that there is a deep partnership between the training institutes where the skills are acquired, the employers, represented by people like NECA and other organized private sector players, and government, right? They work together to agree on what is needed, train for those things, and move them into employment. Of course, government creates the atmosphere where all that can happen. I wonder whether we can adopt such an approach. And I wonder whether, as part of trying to solve this stubborn problem of unemployment, we can adopt this partnership approach where we are training for what business needs, and government is right there at the table. This is what they've done in places like Germany, Switzerland, and in other countries that have near full employment. And there's no reason we can't do it here. And I believe that as we consult and engage, please let us solve practical problems and not just focus on what I call finger pointing. You'll notice that in my sharing what I've shared, I haven't looked at it from point of view of who is guilty or who is to blame. I've looked at it from point of view of what we can do together to create a more successful, robust country, because we have all the ingredients if only we will work together. Thank you for listening, and I wish you happy deliberations. Thank you.
He is as cerebral as ever. Another round of applause to Dr. Okechukwu Enalama. And I'm very sure a whole lot of the things he raised, I saw Mr. Taiwo Oyedele listening carefully. I'm sure you have imported some things in your paper in our first plenary. But we've been here for quite a long time. I don't know, the DG is not here, but we have in mind to break for about 20 minutes for tea. DG Sec, I hope you agree with me. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, no problem? Okay, thank you very much. It's a democracy, MacP. All right, so, and the ambassador to Spain, I must say congratulations to you. Your country is playing well at the Euros. And you are giving us a 16-year-old, Lamine Yamal, who is, after playing football, goes to study and submit his assignment. Thank you, and congratulations to Spain. So we'll take a break now for tea. 20 minutes will do. Mr. Oyedele, would that be fine? 20 minutes for tea. Ushers, take care of some of our special guests. We have just 20 minutes. It's exactly 12 noon now. At 12:20, let's be back here for the first plenary.
Inspiring excellence in teaching. You stand a chance to win a grand prize of 10 million naira, a capacity development training abroad, and other benefits for the school where you teach. The first runner-up gets 3 million naira, the second runner-up gets 2.5 million naira, and the state champions get 1 million naira each. Application is free and is open to both private and public secondary school teachers. Terms and conditions apply. Think you've got what it takes to be the 2024 Multina Teacher of the Year? Hurry now and enter as application closes on the Friday, July 19, 2024. Also, follow at Multina Teacher of the Year and at Multina on social media for more information. Multina Teacher of the Year is proudly endorsed by the Federal Ministry of Education. Multina Teacher of the Year, A decade of aspiring excellence in teaching.
Unwrap joy, unleash taste. The world.
It's time for friendship, time for family, time for another get together. Hey, let's celebrate. Select a moment, a happy moment. Select a moment, share a moment with Veleta. It's time for connection, smiles, laughter, and love. It's time for sharing moments. Hey, let's celebrate.
Enjoy every moment with the goodness of Veleta sparkling fruit drink. Available in 75 cl and 37.5 cl bottles and comes in red grape, white grape, and peach variants. Another product of premium quality from Intercontinental Distillers Limited, ITL. Veleta sparkling fruit drink. Celebrate every moment.
Ovieme.
Aw, I wish you were here.
I'm always with you.
But it's not the same without you.
MTN 5G's amazing technology will change how we experience life and the internet. Get ready to encounter the incredible. And remember, no be juju, na MTN 5G.
Nestle touches lives every day. From the farmers who produce the agricultural raw materials to the host communities where operations are located and the millions of individuals and families who enjoy the tasty, nutritious products across Nigeria daily. We work with stakeholders and partners to build strong communities and supply chains while improving livelihoods in the communities directly connected to our business activities.
Our journey with Nestle started as a major distributor 6 years ago, going to 7 years now. Growing up, my mom was a dealer, so we grew up with a lot of Nestle products. And when we were small, was when they had this frisbee that we used to play with as kids. And then that famous Milo, kwa kwa kwa, kwa 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 kwa. These are my memories of Nestle growing up. Coming into Nestle business as a distributor is something that I've always wanted to do, and when the opportunity came up, I grabbed it, and so far the story has been nice.
What does it take to be an original? It's not just walking the path of others, but one.
Golden Terra Oil. A mom can transform a frown into a smile. Change no thanks into yes please. Resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty family meals is all that matters. Where there are moms, there is love. Golden Terra Oil, for pure love.
don't land, no. They go see commando. When we land, no. They go see commando.
Nestle touches lives every day. From the farmers who produce the agricultural raw materials to the host communities where operations are located and the millions of individuals and families who enjoy the tasty, nutritious products across Nigeria daily. We work with stakeholders and partners to build strong communities and supply chains while improving livelihoods in the communities directly connected to our business activities.
Our journey with Nestle started as a major distributor 6 years ago, going to 7 years now. Growing up, my mom was a dealer, so we grew up with a lot of Nestle products. And when we were small, was when they had this frisbee that we used to play with as kids. And then that famous Milo, kwa kwa kwa, kwa 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 kwa. These are my memories of Nestle growing up. Coming into Nestle business as a distributor is something that I've always wanted to do, and when the opportunity came up, I grabbed it, and so far the story has been nice.
Please come in and take your seats. Come in and take your seats, please.
TerraCube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
As we are settling down, let me specially welcome here the Special Advisor on Economic Matters to the President, Office of the Vice President, Dr. Tokwe Kolade Faswa. I welcome you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please come in and take your seats, please. Please come in and take your seats. We're about kicking off. Please come in and settle down, please. And I can see that all the members of this panel are here.
I wish you were here.
I'm always with you.
But it's not the same without you.
Let's settle down, please. Come in and take your seats. Okay, so we'll kick off. The rest of them will be joining us later. But for some of us who are still standing, can we take our seats now and settle down, please? Our first panel, as I welcome everybody, please take your seats, please, will be on fiscal, monetary, and trade policies, deepening government and private sector collaboration for inclusive growth. We'll have a speaker, and we also have members of the panel. Let me first and foremost here welcome our moderator, one of the finest brains in economics in Nigeria, Dr. Biodun Adedikpe, Chief Consultant, B. Adedikpe Associates Limited. Please, let's appreciate him as he steps forward here. The main speaker, who will be sitting very close to the moderator, is the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms. Please join me as I welcome here, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. These are members of the panel. CIBN Registrar, if he's in the room, Mr. Akimurakio, or a representative. Dr. Joshua Bamfo, partner, Anderson Tax. Mr. Olufemi Olanide, Assistant Director, Federal Inland Revenue Service. Professor Adeola Adenikiju, President, Nigeria Economic Society. And Dr. Afolabi Olowokere, MD, Analyst Data Services. Okay. So without much ado, let me hand over to the moderator, please.
Thank you so very much, Billy. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first appreciation and regards goes to the President and Chairman of NECA and the leadership of the Employers Association of Nigeria. And the first panel session of this year's summit is going to look at the issue of the, let me take that straight from here, and that is fiscal, monetary, and trade policies, deepening government and private sector collaboration for inclusive growth. And this, of course, is central to all the conversations that we are going to have at this summit. Now, our understanding as the team before you this afternoon is that when it comes to talking about the economy, everybody is an expert in Nigeria. And so we all have our different perspectives. And all of this, we also set the rules of engagement in our conversation so we can manage our time effectively and still extract value from our conversations. So the format we are going to run with is that we have the main speaker, and that is Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, whom, of course, I'm sure everybody in the hall should be familiar with as at now. If you are not, that means you are not operating this economy. Let me put it that way. Because he, at present, as we know, is the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms. And I understand also that we have Dr. Tokpe Fashuba is in the house. He's supposed to also join us here. Please, may I invite you to join the panel here because you are one of us. Thank you so very much, Doc. Yeah, thank you for that. So we take two presentations, one from our main speaker, the second one from Dr. Fashuba. And we are looking at doing that within 25 minutes. 15 minutes for Mr. Oyedele, 10 minutes for Dr. Fashuba, after which we go into panel discussion. Our panelists will make their opening remarks and contributions. Each of them already have 4 minutes allotted. And then we come to the audience and take interventions. Because of time, we won't be able to take more than 4. But the ground rule is that you ask your question, or if it's going to be a comment, you have not more than 1 minute. The plan is you ask your question and then direct it to any of the speakers or panelists here, and then they respond in 3 minutes, which means for every intervention from the audience, there's a budget, let me use the word budget now in context, okay, of 4 minutes. So if we're able to keep to that time discipline, we can get a lot of value from this conversation. And then after that, we come back to closing remarks by our speakers, and then, of course, the panelists. So thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. On that note, I want to invite Mr. Oyedele to please take the floor and speak to us for the next 15 minutes on the subject before this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator and my brother, and thank you to the other members of the panel. I have a presentation that is just one slide. I don't know whether it can be projected. The good news about the slide is it's only one slide. The bad news is if you allow me, I can be on it for a whole day. But I know I have only 15 minutes, so I will stick to that. The way I've titled my presentation is to look at the economic tripod. So there are so many policies that are important, and don't get me wrong. But if we can get monetary, fiscal, and trade policies right, all of that shall be added onto us. And looking at that as well within the context of how do we collaborate better between the public sector and the private sector. So I've called it collaboration for results, so that we are measuring actually what are those impacts that we are making that are meaningful. I think we need to get a point quickly, if you are not already there, where we stop celebrating incremental progress. It was 10 before, now it is 12. Yeah, you can't keep doing that. We lost almost a whole generation in terms of development. So we need to make a leap. We need transformative progress so our narrative can be different. So the first thing I want to do is to give a quick overview and context for where we are. And my brother and the keynote speaker, former minister, did an excellent job, so I won't repeat what he has said. But the issues we are dealing with today have both the global and domestic context to them. We are clearly one of the countries in this global village. And I've said a number of times before that each time you pray for Nigeria, you should say a prayer for the rest of the world. When COVID started, it wasn't us that caused it. And at the end of the day, the biggest negative impact of COVID on our economy wasn't the fatality. We are grateful to God for that. It was what COVID did to the developed countries. They printed money, gave to their citizens. They knew it would create inflation. As soon as they saw the inflation, they started monetary tightening. And that also included raising interest rates. As they were raising interest rates, capital was leaving our shores, because investors are not just looking for returns, they are looking for risk-adjusted returns. You can give 20% returns in Nigeria, but I can't get the dollar to take the money out. I'd rather do 5% in the US. So that compounded our already difficult situation that we seem to be struggling with up until this moment. In addition to those global issues, we have our local economic headwinds, including insecurity. And of course, there are fiscal constraints. If you take the federal government budget of about 29 trillion today, add all the 36 states, 774 local governments, federal capital territory, all the government agencies that run their own budgets, we are talking about less than $50 billion. $50 billion for a country of more than 200 million people. If we decide that the only thing we want to do is provide transport infrastructure from rail to road, transport by sea, and maintain them, the $50 billion will be inadequate. So which means a fundamental issue we must look at is how do we address that? And we must never be tempted into jumping to the conclusion that the money is there, we just need to get it out. I put up a post this morning about the wrong perception we have about the informal sector, thinking that that's where our money is. There's no data to support that. We have to develop a mindset of development first, then revenue will follow as a natural consequence. We have very low investments, both domestic and foreign investments, not anywhere close to what it needs to be. And sadly, we're also having some divestments or scaling down. I have to put this in context. Every country has, people who close down every time. The US, for example, has thousands of companies that close down on a monthly basis. Because even by way of development, some businesses will no longer be relevant. But what you want to get to, you get to a point where on a net basis, you are growing as a country. It could be that you are challenging the way you've been doing business before, and you want to do it better. But these are concerning for us because the reason why some of them are closing down are reasons that we could have prevented. Our population continues to grow despite all of this, and poverty seems to be growing faster than the rate of population growth. This should concern any of us. The report that was put out by the Bureau of Statistics about 2 years ago on multidimensional poverty at the time said about 133 million Nigerians lived in multidimensional poverty. That was before fuel subsidy reduction. That was before Naira flotation. If you do that survey today, you are guaranteed that that number would have increased by double digits. If you remember the Abraham Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs, you have the physiological need and safety. If you look at the components of multidimensional poverty, they fall within physiological need and safety needs. And they're not very different from what Nigerians told us when we conducted a national study on tax perception that shows that Nigerians don't want to pay their taxes because they don't trust government and because they don't get enough for the taxes they pay, and that the process is complex and corrupt. When we asked Nigerians what should government prioritize, they told us education, health, security, and electricity. So you see a perfect alignment between physiological and safety needs, multidimensional poverty, and the request from our people. So our message, and that's why my committee is actually not a tax committee, it's a fiscal policy and tax reforms committee. So we're looking at revenue, we're looking at spending, we're looking at borrowing, and coordination of government policies. Some of the key reforms that have been carried out by the government include the one on subsidy, includes the one on flotation of the exchange rates, but also it includes policies around government assets. We have Ministry of Finance Incorporated, asking the question of, can we not bring our assets together and sweat them? Maybe these assets can even give us more revenue than we are generating today from taxes. We've had monetary policy interventions, including how we manage our interest rates, which unfortunately has resulted into problems and challenges around access to credit. Not many businesses can function profitably if they have to borrow at 30-35%. We have policies around trade, including export promotion, import substitution, and issues to do with factors of production, as well as land reform, human capital. We identified, for example, that we have policies in Nigeria. Some of them are legal, some of them are regulatory, some of them are tax, that are preventing global organizations from hiring Nigerians in Nigeria to work for them within the global business process value chain. This is an area where the likes of Philippines made over $35 billion about last year. India leads that space with over $200 billion. Nigeria is not even making $1 billion. Our English is better than the Indians. Our time zone is better. We have smart people. But our policies are preventing us from leveraging on that opportunity. Just imagine 1 million Nigerians working with that global process system, even at $1,000 per month that they earn. That is easily $1 billion. Not only in FS inflow, that is income for those families. And we know the way it is in Nigeria. One person that is earning that kind of money has like 15 people they will cater for. So we've identified those and trying to address them. We also think that part of the collaboration between the public and private sector is our perception of education in Nigeria. So we are so good at running after certificates. And that means that we are not chasing the things that impact on our lives positively. You know, I read that China, I don't know whether it's true or not, converted many of their universities to polytechnics because they are looking for skills. What is Nigeria doing? We're doing the opposite. Let everybody get a degree. Let them know the theories. Who is going to get a job done? Why are we not focusing on skills and solution? And the private sector, I know, is doing far better than the public sector, but we all have to start focusing on providing solutions and getting things done. We have a lot of implications from the reforms, the key reforms. Some of them are intended, many of them are unintended consequences, including the cost of living crisis that we are dealing with, which is also creating some social risk for us. I already mentioned credit constraints, both for the household and for businesses, and there is macroeconomic volatility. Whether you're talking about inflation, it's very stubborn, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. We take the view that our inflation is not demand pull, it's not as a result of excess liquidity. We think that the liquidity we have is concentrated in the hands of like 2% of the population. Those are not the people who are buying a lot of gari and yam. And therefore, the approach we have to adopt, I don't think it's a question of orthodox or unorthodox. It has to be a fit-for-purpose approach. Just look at the data. What does it say? And target it in a way that it's not a binary choice between fighting inflation and growing the economy. We can do both. So, moving forward, as I wrap up my presentation, what are we doing about this? Of course, clearly I'm not here to come and lament. That's not the job I've been given to do. It's to find solutions, practical solutions to these problems. What we have been doing in my committee is to engage extensively. And people have asked me many times, even today, they said, this is your committee, when are you going to start implementing? I said, even us, we are in a hurry. We wish we could have implemented like yesterday. But we know that we have to get the direction right first. Otherwise, our speed will be taking us in the wrong direction. So direction first, then speed. Good news is we are now at a point where we're moving from ideation to implementation. And that we have just started. In fact, I had to leave a retreat where we locked up, I don't know whether that's the right word, Ministry of Justice. And we say we've been writing this law since last week. We're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Once I'm done now, I'm going back there. So we are optimistic that as we begin to implement these reforms, the Nigerian people will see noticeable improvements in their lives and the business environment. Clearly, we need to improve policy coordination. Even while we're putting all of this together, we've seen things like expatriate employment levy, we've seen cybersecurity tax, things are popping up here and there. But I'll say those are the issues we are trying to deal with that are still raising their ugly heads here and there. We shouldn't lose focus of where we are heading towards and make sure that we get to a point where those things never happen again. What I have seen so far, even with my private sector experience previously, is that when it comes to policies, just the idea that something gets out is damaging enough, even if it's reversed. So you are far better off preventing it than doing otherwise. When Total took their investment to Angola, their reasons were very clear. They said the policy environment in Nigeria is uncertain. We were here when sometimes last year or year before, some people thought that they could add an extra 30% to investment in gas. And it got to the National Assembly. Gas companies pay company income tax at 30%. Some people decided that Nigeria has to be the one protecting the planet for everyone. They added a further 30%. They were going to add a further 30% to gas investments. Total was one of the guys committing about over $1 billion to gas. They reversed it. When it was time for crude investment, they went to Angola. That's how life works. Even Nigerian people who look for certainty in investment, how much else? A foreign investor, they don't owe you anything. They're looking for the environment that is predictable. So we must do evidence-based policy formulations. We must focus not only on efforts, but outcomes, and by extension, the impact those outcomes make, which we must keep under constant monitoring and review them as frequently as necessary. So finally, what are the KPIs that we should measure? There are 5 of them. Number 1 is enabling environment. How well have we dealt with overregulation? So I spoke to an investor who told me that for the past 3 years, these people registered a company and they haven't started in 3 years because they're still doing regulatory approval here and there. So people who export, we spoke to them and some of them said they need more than 20 approvals, licenses, permits before they can export anything. Every single agency that they have to go through will charge them money and it will take time, average of 2 months or longer. Now, when they finish exporting those things, the countries where they need to export to don't even need those certificates. People are now having to put goods inside vehicles, drive to Ghana to go and export from there in a country where we need all the exports we can find. Some of these are self-inflicted pains. And once we have decided, we need to address them by ourselves. The business environment has to improve significantly. Number 2, we have to coordinate our policies better, particularly monetary, fiscal, and trade policies. And there has to be fair taxation. The data we have shows that the people at the bottom of the ladder in society have carried, to date, disproportionately higher burden of taxes than the rest of us. That is the biggest definition of inequity. In fact, we have said to ourselves that, a progressive system is not just the one that collects more from the rich than the poor. It has to be measured by a system that spends more for the poor than they do for the rich. So the other one is responsible borrowing. And I think that is self-explanatory. And the last one is sustainable spending. Don't just go and spend and commission it and take photos. So what tends to happen is politicians just do things for the photos. They start projects they don't complete. They complete the ones they don't maintain afterwards. Many of them are inflated. That has to stop. I said earlier on that even the entire budget itself is so small, it's barely enough to maintain transportation infrastructure. Why do you then waste it? Why is your priority of spending wrong? Why are we building local airports when we don't have primary school or health center? Some airports that we have in Nigeria can hardly boast of 1 flight a week, and you need about 300 million naira to maintain them. So no surprise that Abuja Airport is the world number 1, and Lagos is the world number 2 for the highest number of taxes and levies in the world. Those are not the kind of ranking and awards that we want as a country. It may sound difficult, but it has to be done. And the problems of Nigeria has to be provided in terms of the solutions by Nigerians, working with our friends and partners. So I'll wrap up by these quotes by Abraham Lincoln that says, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So I would invite you to please join us in creating the Nigeria of our dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Oyedele. That indeed has laid a very solid foundation for our conversation this afternoon. I won't attempt to do any summary so that we can manage our time effectively. So I will come to Dr. Fachwa. And as mentioned earlier on, I know it's going to be a tough task for you, 10 minutes, with a deck of 37 slides. So, but please, you have the floor.
Yeah, sorry, can they project my slides as well, please? I think since I'm not a big man like Taiwo, I'd like to stand up to do this. Okay, so I'll flip through this very quickly. A number of what I'd like to say have already been said. Let's go. If you have the controller, I could use it myself, you know. So basically, I had actually prepared an extensive paper which will look at fiscal, monetary policies, trade policies, and then look at those issues of coordination and, you know, and also delve a bit into the macroeconomics and inflation and growth, essentially. And then I close with sustainability. Let's go on. Okay, there's something wrong with this bit. It's not showing fully. Well, basically, this is talking about fiscal policy peculiarities. And of course, you know, the reason why I went into some of this definition is that, okay, there's something there. The reason is that, you know, we throw around a lot of terminologies in Nigeria. We're like that. We like our terminologies and so on. So there's need for us to clarify some of these issues. Continue. So fiscal policies is basically about, of course, is what they call tax and spend. So it's all everything that has to do with how government raises money and what choices we make of it. It's the use of government spending and taxes to influence the economy according to the IMF. And if for those of us who are economists, if you look at that formula for GDP, the G there is government spending, less taxes. So spending by government, you know, enlarges the economy. Taxation kind of shrinks when government wants to shrink the size of the economy. Continue, please. So basically, this is just it. Expansionary is when government believes they want to, you know, expand the economy and by spending more, or, you know, it's either you spend more or you reduce taxes. Continue, please. I have just 10 minutes. If I could push it to 15 minutes, I'd be happy. Continue. Continue. Yeah. So essentially, these are the tools of fiscal policy. Basically, public revenue, public debt, and of course, public expenditure. So what I'll do is I'll just, you know, if I see topical issues, I'll expatiate on it before moving on. So, of course, that is known. Public revenue, through taxes, go back, please, go back. Through taxes and non-tax, because again, when we talk about tax, and I must say I'm also a member of Mr. Taiwo Edele's committee on tax reform, but we're actually concerned about revenue as a whole, because what governments are entitled to all over the country and all over the world are not only taxes, they're also rents and rates and fees and fines, you know, and levies and so on, you know. The City of London is basically run on fees, congestion fee when you drive into central London, the fines that they take from people, that's how countries are run, you know. So we also have to be prepared for some of those changes that we'll have to see in our society. And of course, in terms of public expenditure, there's always that contest between recurrent and capital. But the reason why this is important is that, you know, we must also understand that sometimes a lot gets lost in translation. Many of the things that are considered as capital expenditure in some of our budgeting, things like laptop, you know, considered as capital, things like cars, make it into capital expenditure. Are they really capital? So that's some of the things to look out for. And if we want to do recurrent expenditure, Taiwo mentioned just now that, you know, governments like to build big infrastructure and then maintenance becomes a problem. At some point in time in my other life, I had proposed that, look, we could actually run a budget or budgets that focus on maintenance for the next 5 to 10 years. And look, all we want to do is maintain what we have. I know countries in Africa here, and even in maybe parts of Eastern Europe, that don't have the kind of infrastructure that we have. We have roads built in this country that don't see more than 20, 30 cars in a day. I've passed some of them. Okay, so we are also aware of some of those, and we are in government, and those are some of the changes we're trying to make. Let's go on. So fiscal policy, what are the issues? Of course, I mentioned the contest between recurrent and capital. So there's always a need for us to read between the lines, okay? To read between the lines when we're talking about that. Of course, the issue of size and quality of the budget. I mean, the national budget is only maybe about $85 per person. As a matter of fact, in dollar terms, it's got worse, which is where we have to be very, very, very afraid. Because in dollar terms, it's worse. Of course, that part of that is due to the devaluation of the currency. But when you're doing $85 for everything you provide for a Nigerian, whether we're talking about education, security, agriculture, infrastructure, and what have you, there's a problem. When you go to Europe, you see $25,000 per person. When you go to US, it's close to $30,000 per person. In South Africa, it's $2,500 per person. In Angola, it's about $2,000 per person. In Algeria, it's about $1,000 per person. In Kenya, $500. In Ghana, about $300 per person. So there's a need for us, and that's where the revenue comes in. Because you see, it's either we're choosing to say that, look, we are mediocres, and I don't believe that we are. Nigerians are not mediocres, so we can't keep digging down that line of achieving too little. If we know that's not the case, okay, so let's work on the revenue. If we can get the revenue up, because that's always the problem, they say, oh, the revenue is too small and all that. We should be able to do much better on that. The debt to GDP ratio, of course, we can see that one of the instruments of fiscal policy is also debt, okay, borrowing, government borrowing. But our debt to GDP ratio is about 44%, if we consider the recent increase in the debt, which was actually attributed to Naira devaluation, as it were, or Naira's depreciation, as it were. 44% is not too bad, truth must be told. We know that the real issue is actually the debt servicing to revenue ratio, okay, because the revenue, again, is too small. I challenge those who are here. I thought there was supposed to be a gentleman from FRS here. With the devaluation and depreciation of the currency, we should be looking at a much higher revenue than even what has been budgeted this year. That's the truth. The custom intends to do about 5 trillion this year, and customs usually do at least 20% of the national revenue. So we can gross that up. We can look at about 25 trillion actually. Let's move on. Challenges in monetary policy. Let's move on. Okay, so basically monetary policy, I try to look at monetary theory. And you know that we've always had a problem with this monetary policy thing in the last few years, especially going through COVID and the ways and means saga and all of that. But monetary policy itself, or monetary theory, is based on the idea that a change in money supply is a key driver of economic activity. Monetarists actually focus a lot on money supply, money supply, money supply. My problem with that, okay? It argues that central banks, which controls the levers of monetary policy, can exert much power over economic growth rates by tinkering with the amount of currency and other liquid instruments in a country's economy. Sometimes, I'm afraid whether our economy is such that should actually be based on that level of thinking, because this actually says that your data must be almost 100%. But of course, it's a school of thought in economics which was championed by Milton Friedman, of course, after Maynard Keynes was kind of discredited after the Second World War. Of course, the British were looking for money with America, and of course, this school of thought, which later became known as the Chicago School of Thought, came into primacy. In every state in this country, at least a while back, I don't know about now, there's a few money counterfeiting operation, people printing their own money. And so how well can we estimate that? But that's the work of central bank. Let's continue. So the dilemma with monetary policy is we saw a scenario where in a recent past, we depended too much on monetary policy. There's a reliance on ways and means. We got up to 30 trillion ways and means. The monetary policy body, which is central bank, moved into the fiscal space, and actually around COVID and just a little bit after, we saw a scenario where the central bank was basically running agric, running industries, and running every other thing. So of course, there's also the problem of fiscal dominance, which means that when the debt and deficit is too high, monetary policy becomes inefficient in controlling inflation. Of course, later on, we saw a speculative attack on the Nigerian currency. And how can we actually say I think almost everybody will agree that, look, if we want to really grow the economy, we have to look at other policies apart from monetary policy. Continue, please. And I quickly want to say here that in considering monetary policy, fiscal policy, and trade policy, of course, that's the topic that we were given to talk about, which is fair enough, you know, but I would have wanted to see something in the area of industrial policy. Because again, in talking about trade policy, you only sell what you have. Okay, Nigeria joined the World Trade Organization in 1995. China joined in 2001. But China had something to sell. And as we're speaking up to date, most of what we're pushing out is crude oil and a few crops here and there. Continue, please. Let's shoot. You know, what's the value of now? Well, these are some of the issues. This is also still part of monetary policy. Exchange rate policy is part of monetary policy. People talk a lot about the true value of the currency. It's just like when we're talking about true federalism. The truth is that, in my own opinion, nothing like that exists. Your currency is what you make of it. The management of a country's currency is a strategic imperative, which can't even be left to the country's central bank alone. Because your country is what you make of it. You can either have fixed floating, money floating, or pegging. I think we went to the floating, you know. It's a bit choppy. The central bank will tell us, you know, what's next on that regard, you know. There are a few other things I may not be able to talk about here because of time. Let's continue. But I note there that, do you want a weak currency or a strong currency? And what is your bus stop? You know, when you get on the bus, you must have a place where you hop off. But if you are going with the bus and going with the bus and on, then you have a problem. China has a fairly weak currency, but it ranges between 6 to 8 renminbi to $1. And with that 6 to 8 renminbi, they're able to push exports. Okay, Japan has a currency that's a bit weak. It flows between 140 and 180 yen. In fact, recently Japan had to directly intervene in supporting their currency because they felt it was getting too weak. As a matter of fact, the Japanese yen itself was at par with the dollar until the Second World War. It was because of the dropping of the H-bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the moving in of American troops. The first thing that was done was the devaluation of the Japanese yen to 600 yen to $1. So therefore, you see that over time they've been able to walk it back